This video is brought to you by Iona, North America's premier charging network. With unmatched commitment to elevating the customer experience, Iona is opening America's roads to all EVs, giving drivers the coverage they need, the reliability they deserve, and the amenities they crave.
Welcome to another episode of Out of Spec Reviews, where today we're going to be talking about a really strange situation.
This is so freaking annoying!
Some may call it annoying. I may call it, I smell a rat. I don't know what's going on here, but I can tell you it's June 1st. And as of today, there are 64 Supercharger stations shut down in the state of New Jersey along the New Jersey State Turnpike Authority across 8 separate plazas that are owned by a company called Applegreen. A contract was awarded to a single provider back in 2022, which went to Applegreen, that operates a whole series of travel plazas. They're based out of Dublin, Ireland. They're a big company. Last year when I was over in England, we saw them expanding in Oxford, England. But there's like 2 stations here versus 10 Teslas over there. So what the heck is going on? I don't understand this. I think we're going backwards. State of New Jersey, what the heck are you doing? If we want to adopt infrastructure in the ground to promote the use of EVs, you're going backwards, my friends, backwards. So here I am at the Applegreen Travel Plaza right along Route 95 in Connecticut, which is very similar to what you'll see over in New Jersey along the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. Applegreen, again, this is a company out of Dublin, Ireland. They're in the process of expanding immensely here in the States. They've got some nice travel plazas where they've got McDonald's, they've got Sbarro, they've got, I don't know, all kinds of good food in there. And you know, it's nice. It's where you want to stop. There's a mobile gas station here. There's actually a brand new Starbucks that's here as well. But here's the thing. Applegreen has actually been awarded this contract to be the sole provider along the New Jersey Turnpike. Is basically shutting down all these Tesla Supercharger locations, just saying, you got to turn them off. You can't operate them here. And what's crazy about that is that they don't even have enough infrastructure in the ground along 95, the Turnpike in Jersey, to have as many Tesla Superchargers that are out there. So that just is wacky to me. It just does not make sense. I mean, I don't really see anything wrong with Applegreen winning the contract, winning the mandate, but why have a single provider? It doesn't make sense. Now, the other thing is that the infrastructure that they're putting in the ground here, they vary. The ones here that are in Darien, Connecticut, these are BTC powered, basically putting out 150 kilowatts. And, you know, the thing is, that's not super fast infrastructure. In addition to that, it's not the same infrastructure. It seems that Applegreen buys their equipment from many different providers, Alpatronics, and they're going to be putting some higher speed units in different places. But what that means is you're going to potentially have a different infrastructure in the ground that may not be as consistent. This gentleman and his son who are just charging here over at Applegreen, the young boy, he goes to Colorado State University over in Fort Collins, but they were plugging in over here at Applegreen, and I said, "Hey, sir, do you have your adapter with you?" He goes, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Well, why don't you charge over there at the V3s? It's 59 cents a kilowatt hour over here, and it's 39 cents a kilowatt over there." So he's like, "I'm going over there." So, I mean, you know, listen, if you can comparison shop, you should. Well, you live and learn. Apparently the V3 station here at Darien is, even if you have the adapter, it doesn't work. You can't charge there. Can't park there. So I feel really bad. The guy in the F-150, I told him to go over and charge at the Tesla V3s because he had the adapter. He was all excited. So he went over there, and now, guess what? A G70 pulled in next to the Aria, the Nissan Aria, and he's blocked. But he said, "Dave, don't worry about it. You know, it was innocent. We live and learn." Good guy. Oh man, so annoying. Now he's blocked. So what I want to do right now is shift gears and start talking with Jordan and Tom, kind of delve into the situation as to what's going on down in the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, shutting off 64 Tesla Superchargers today. I mean, here I am in Connecticut, They haven't done it up here. So I don't know. Is Applegreen to blame? Is the state to blame? Is the state getting a rev share? And, like, it's strange to me. One thing that's true, though, is if you look at the infrastructure that Tesla has put in the ground over the last 3 years, just off of the New Jersey Turnpike, I think Tesla probably was doing a defensive move. Maybe I'm wrong, but there seems to be a lot of infrastructure just off of 95, which is a good thing because today you can't charge on the New Jersey Turnpike if you have a Tesla, unless you're using your CCS Combo 1 adapter and want to pay 59 cents a kilowatt hour. All right, so everyone, here we are. As promised, I've got Tom and Jordan, the experts. Me, obviously, you saw what I did with that guy with the F-150. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but at least I'm out there trying to make things happen. And so what I thought I would do is kind of bring in the experts here, Tom and Jordan, especially Tom. Tom is a New Jersey guy. He grew up in New Jersey. He knows New Jersey. He knows all the travel plazas. And I thought we can really try and unpack this a little bit more about what's going on. With that as a backdrop, Jordan, Tom, I'll just turn it over to you guys and let's chat.
Well, it's good to see you guys. First of all, I always like to collab with the Out of Spec family. So we've got a good relationship.
You're Out of Spec family. Come on, you.
I agree. I you're 100% right. We're so intertwined. So, I mean, a lot of people even know that Dave and I kind of knew each other even before this whole out of spec and state of charge thing happened. Dave and I, were together at car meets back in, the 90s. Oh, no, not the early 2000s. Early 2000s, not the 90s.
The I3 thing at Nona's Pizza, right? And that's when when he was maybe 15. I didn't think he could drive yet. But so that's amazing. But look, I had brought you guys up to speed. I drove down to Darien this morning, just down the road to the plaza. There's actually a northbound and a southbound. The southbound has a whopping two Applegreen BTCs. These are 150s, 150 kilowatt chargers. And then on the northbound side, there's four. But you compare that to the number of Tesla Superchargers, at least on the southbound side, there's 12. Yeah. Right. And so like the numbers obviously don't make a lot of sense, but from a ratio standpoint. But Tom, why don't you maybe give just the overview from your perspective as to what's happened in New Jersey? I tried my best in the opening, but let's hear it from you.
Yeah. So, this goes back 3 years. And in 2022, New Jersey put out a bid for management of all the travel centers in the state. There's 21 travel centers along Turnpike and I guess the Parkway. So they put out a bid, which happens from time to time on management companies to manage the whole plaza. It's not just a particular point of it. They don't want to deal with any of it. They want one company to manage the whole thing. Now, Applegreen, this company called Applegreen, which I didn't know, actually manages more travel plazas in the U.S. than any other company. Okay, they manage like 200 travel plazas, or whatever it is. Anyway, that's their lane, managing travel plazas, food and beverage, and all the parking lot and everything. So they recently, I don't know how long, I guess a few years ago, realized, hey, we got to get into the EV charging thing because that's that's the future, and we need to install them in our travel plazas. So they're an Irish company, or they're based in Ireland. They've got a bunch of travel plazas in Ireland and I believe England with chargers and so forth. They just came to the U.S. recently, I guess. Although they manage a bunch of travel plazas, they didn't have EV charging. They just started installing it in New York and Connecticut and the Northeast. I know because I use their chargers when I drive to Vermont. If I need to stop and charge, I've used them before. I paid a lot of money. I think I paid like 60 cents a kilowatt hour or something up there, but I don't know. I don't think they have consistent pricing. It depends on where you are.
Yeah, here in Darien, Connecticut, it's 59 cents a kilowatt hour versus Tesla Superchargers, which are 39 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah, so yeah, they're not inexpensive. Well, one thing I will say, they've always worked. I've never stopped at a travel plaza and had one of the units not functioning, like out of order. They've always all been up and working. Now, granted, these are new units, haven't been out there a long time, and there's only like 4 or 6 at each travel plaza. It's not like Tesla. They don't come in and, light up 12 stalls and, which along these major corridors, you need a lot of chargers. Tremendous amount of thousands and tens of thousands of cars pass by, every day on these major corridors. So I will say I never had to wait at one of the Applegreens going up to on the New York Thruway, but there's been times where all 4 stations were used. I was one of them.
Yeah. So Tom, I got to tell you just fast. So this guy on the F-150, I told him to go over to the V3. He didn't work. Then he called me over. We figured out, okay, go back. And then the 2 chargers, one was blocked with a Nissan Ariya and the other was a GV70 electric. So he had to wait.
So now we had to wait. Yeah. There's only 2 there at that one?
2. Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous. You can't.
The northbound side has 4 and the southbound side has 2.
In my opinion, the absolute minimum today, if you're going to install DC fast charging on any corridor, any highway, it's got to be 8 units in my opinion, minimum. Really 10, but I'll give you that and say 8. Okay, that's where I think we're at today. Should be the absolute lowest bar. But in any event, so Applegreen bid. New Jersey put their travel plazas out to bid. Management company. Applegreen won the bid. This was back in 2022. Governor Murphy had this big announcement. He flew to Ireland. He met their headquarters and all this stuff, got wined and dined and everything, as politicians do, make a big deal out of it, said, what a great thing for New Jersey. And on paper, it looks like it was. The Applegreen pledged to invest like $126 million in the state, and they promised to move their U.S. headquarters to Glen Rock, New Jersey, which was going to create 100 full-time, long-term jobs and an additional 800 jobs while everything was being built out and everything. So Governor Murphy, lauded it as a big, a positive thing for the state, long-term, permanent, high-paying jobs. We're going to have charging installed on all the plazas and everything. But at the time, there was no announcement that it was going to be an exclusive contract. And now we hear, I guess that is what it was. It meant that Applegreen managing the sites has the exclusive right to EV charging on the site. Now, looking at it from a pure business perspective, if I'm Applegreen, if I'm the CEO of Applegreen and I'm negotiating with the state, I would ask for that also. I would say, you can't have somebody else. I'm managing this whole property. I'm going to be cleaning up their garbage when their customers come and plug in and leave their cups and stuff in the parking lot. It should be me. Now that's looking at it from Tom, the businessman's perspective. Tom, the EV owner and EV driver's perspective, has a different perspective, particularly because I've used these chargers for the last many years. They were the only chargers on the Turnpike. Tesla was the only company that would invest a lot of money in the Turnpike and put these chargers in. And I think it's terrible making them rip them out. I think there should have at least been a carve out. If they were going to have an exclusive contract, a carve out for the existing infrastructure, for Tesla, the fact that they put all this money into this infrastructure, and now just a couple of years later, we're making it take it out. I don't think that's fair. I would have, if I was, making the deal on New Jersey's side, I would have said, okay, we'll give you the exclusive contract, but you have to keep the chargers that are already there because these companies we already made deals with. That's my hot take on it, but there's still obviously a lot more we can discuss.
Yeah, and this doesn't extend to the Garden State Parkway, does it? Is it just the New Jersey Turnpike Authority?
I don't know. I think it's the whole state.
I thought it was just New Jersey Turnpike Authority. But the other thing, I was curious, Tom, do you know, I've read that there is a rev share going on between Applegreen and New Jersey Turnpike Authority to the tune of 10 or 12% of the revenues that are generated by the charging is going to go to the New Jersey Turnpike. Now, assuming that's correct, I don't have that maybe, Tom, I know you know people and you can ask around in the state, and I'm sure you already have, knowing you. And if you find out stuff, we definitely would love to hear from you, or put your own video, whatever you got to do. But my thought is, I was wondering, do you think Tesla was doing the same thing? Is Tesla notorious for rev shares? I've never heard a thing like that.
Well, here's the difference. I believe if there's a rev share, it's a rev share on the whole plaza, on the income the plaza takes. Like they bid on the plaza, so it would be the NJTPA gets 6% of the plaza's revenue, or probably net revenue, not gross revenue. So that would include any net revenue from the chargers. Right. I don't think there's a specific like, oh, we want the chargers money. I think it's an operating. And here's the rub, because Tesla doesn't manage charging plazas. So if the state of New Jersey didn't want to deal with a variety of companies, like, okay, you manage the food, you manage the maintenance of the parking lot, you can have the chargers. They don't want to deal with that. They just said, we want one company to come in here and run these plazas, period, and give us a percentage of their profits. Then you understand why Tesla wouldn't even bid on that.
Yeah.
Because they don't do that.
Yeah, that makes sense from, listen, if you and I are running the government, New Jersey Turnpike Authority, you want to have one point of contact, one, neck to choke or what have you, if something goes wrong. But what is counterintuitive to me here is that, and maybe I'm going a little too far, but you correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I almost moved to New Jersey once because I was buying and selling so many EVs and there was no tax on EVs in New Jersey. I was like, hey, Kathy, it's worth, let's just move to New Jersey. We'll save money. But now the state has changed it so that there is a sales tax on EVs. And so my question is, when you start looking at the fact that New Jersey Turnpike Authority is taking away the ability for people to put fuel in their cars to stay on the road, which is super convenient. Let's face it, when you're on a road trip, you don't want to get off the exit, right? And pay the tolls or whatever it is you're going to do, and drive a mile and go here or go there. You want to stay on the highway. I remember when we were doing, Jordan, remember when we were doing Seattle to Boston, right? Ohio.
Yep.
It was so convenient because they're right there.
Well, Ohio and also upstate New York, where you have Applegreen plazas. We use some of those on the race. And so basically, I think who loses here is the the consumer, which in some cases will be actual residents of New Jersey. They lose out here. Statistically, there are a bigger margin of Teslas than other EVs. But even now that Tesla's market share is shrinking, it's still a huge market share. And you also have this onslaught of more and more EVs coming out that can use Tesla's infrastructure. Now, as you found out, Dave, not all of Tesla's infrastructure, but what's critical is I think Tesla was like, hey, we're going to upgrade like all of these sites, add even more stalls, which they already have a lot of stalls, but they were going to add even more stalls with the V4 dispensers with screens, Magic Docks capabilities to charge other cars. To push more and more EV adoption, you really need as much throughput as possible. And what they're doing is literally removing throughput. I mean, you have statistically a lot of Teslas on the road, probably doing this corridor. I can show you the tweet here on screen where Tesla was showing, the corridor and a lot of their locations. Like Tom mentioned, Tesla probably knew about this potential like a few years ago. And so they started building up some locations off of the highway. But as you pointed out, Dave, that's really, really inconvenient. And we intentionally avoided that when we were doing the I-90 surge. And when I'm doing a road trip, I'm looking at where are chargers located. And maybe I could go to a EA, when I was using the Cybertruck quite a bit, I could go to an EA and get a faster charge than a Tesla Supercharger. But it was pretty much always further off the highway, inconvenient. No one wants to deal with the toll system like off and on if you can avoid it. So this feels more, I don't know, politically motivated, or just like a stabbing because they don't appreciate Doge or anything like that. And I mean, it's frustrating that comes into play because I think a lot of people.
You know what? I don't think, and I don't think that that's the case, because listen to what Tom said. The contract was awarded 3 years ago. Right.
Yeah.
Doge, what was that? That's a cryptocurrency, maybe. Right. There's no Trump. And back in the day, when I say back in the day, when most people liked Elon, right now, that's only 6 months old where people are going crazy about Elon. So I don't think that was a motivation back then. But as I started this, this video today, I smell a rat. Now, question is, who's the rat? Is it Applegreen? They're a for-profit company. If they can secure a deal with the state of New Jersey to be the sole provider of energy for, the highway system. Tom, Jordan, wouldn't we sign up for that? Absolutely, we would. So
Yeah.
I think they're not a rat. They're just a corporation that's trying to make money. God bless them. You know what?
Well, and the
Who does that
deal
leave?
is
Who does it
the
leave?
deal's good. The deal's good. Implementing more chargers is good. Now, Applegreen, we can talk about the hardware a little bit. You saw some stations that were only 150 kilowatt.
Yeah.
Granted, a lot of Applegreen's hardware going forward, and even some already existing, is 350 kilowatt, even 400 kilowatt.
400.
Applegreen is actually working to install Alpatronic HYC 400s on this New Jersey Turnpike. That's awesome. However, from the photos we've seen, it does look to be maybe 4 stalls. And even if they're dual powered, okay, that maybe could be 8, which, as Tom said, is a good minimum. But it still feels like the contract itself, I'm fine with that. It's a good thing. More chargers equals better. Applegreen seems to do a pretty good job at handling these chargers, and they seem to have pretty reliable uptime. Now, I've heard a lot of complaints with really long handshake times. Very mixed reviews on their app. The Apple App Store is 1.9 stars. The Android one is 3.6. None of that's great. As long as they have payment terminals, that's fine. But then you're looking at really expensive. As you mentioned, the average price, from what I can tell from my research from a lot of Applegreen locations, is 59 cents a kilowatt hour versus Tesla would be 39 cents. So it's more like you're punishing the current Tesla drivers. And that's where I think the issue is. Like, having this contract from a few years ago, no problem. But having them suddenly say, okay, now we are making Tesla remove their chargers, that feels like just not a good move. I don't understand it.
Two things, and then Tom, I want to hear your thoughts. 2 things real fast. Number one, I think maybe their uptime is good, because how many charging stations were in the ground in 2022 when Applegreen won this contract in the United States?
None that
Zero.
I know of.
0. Okay. So maybe the reason why they're not breaking down is because they're relatively new. All right. That's number one. Number two, long term, are they going to run into the same problem that EA has run into with having ABB and BTC and all these different units with different infrastructure? And now you're having to deal with the one-to-many, with the handshakes and with the payment mechanisms and all that. Whereas Tesla, being vertically integrated and manufacturing their own stations, that's a business model discussion that ABB, that's a little off topic. But, it's possible that as time goes on, and the winters and the heat and the sun, if they don't really put the money back into the, maintaining the infrastructure, that could be a problem. But on this very topic right now of what the issue is that's going on in New Jersey, all I would say is that someone made a decision that is impacting drivers right now to get fuel in their car the most efficient way if they're on a long-term road trip, meaning on the highway. And that is not a good situation. Tom?
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I wish that the state would have better understood EV charging infrastructure and had a carve out in the contracts that said, we're going to allow other parties to have a certain amount of space to install chargers. I don't see the downside of that. But again, we're talking business, and you look at contract negotiations, you're coming in and saying, we're going to run the state's 21 travel plazas. The state doesn't have to worry about anything. And every other week, there's going to be a big fat, deposit in the state's coffers, a percentage of our take. But here's the thing. If we're running this whole plaza, we need control of the whole plaza. But you can't have a corner over there that we don't control. You can't tell us that McDonald's has to be one of the stores that's inside the plaza. If we want Burger King, if they give us a better deal, then we got Burger King. And so I understand it from that point of view. I think the biggest thing is the EV aficionados, the EV drivers, people like us that understand infrastructure. We know that this is a bad deal for the drivers up and down the turnpike. There's no two ways you can argue that this isn't a bad deal for us, but it's not a bad deal for the business that's running it. And they're the ones that's investing, a couple $100 million to run the travel plazas. I know people don't want to hear this. I know like the drivers don't want to hear that, we're getting screwed again and the state's making the money, but this is business. Did somebody get a nice fat envelope of cash to win a bid? I don't know. Maybe. This is New Jersey, guys. I know more about New Jersey politics than any of you guys here. I've had family involved in it. Right? I grew up in Jersey City, the epicenter of corruption and backroom deals. I know people involved in these deals. So trust me, nothing got done in the 70s in Jersey City without a big fat envelope of cash. Did that happen now? I don't know. I know Governor Murphy flew to Ireland to meet the Applegreen CEOs and was, paraded around as a hero for selecting an Irish-based company to run these things. I'm not saying Governor Murphy or anybody got money, but it wouldn't surprise me if some quid pro quo happened in order for them to win this and get exclusive rights for the charging. But the problem is, and I've reached out to people that I know in politics here now, people in power, and basically saying, here's anything we could do about this. This is a bad deal for New Jersey EV drivers and drivers just going through the state. That this is a bad deal. We can't argue that it's not a bad deal. And here's the problem, guys. And, I don't care if you support Elon or if you don't support Elon. I really don't care. That's your personal decision, what your politics are and all this stuff. But I can tell you one thing. Elon's actions of late have made it very difficult for any politician in New Jersey to now stand up and fight for Tesla. And why is that? It's because the politicians don't give a damn about us. Let's face it. We all know that. They care about getting reelected. And in New Jersey, at least 50% of the constituency doesn't like Elon right now for what he's been doing the last few months or whatever. So how do you get a politician to stand up to defend a company that's owned by Elon when half the state hates him? It's a no-win situation for the politician. Politicians like easy battles. They don't want to have a strong pushback. They'll take on a battle where 10 or 15 or 20% of the population maybe doesn't like because they know they have a big majority. So now the deal's been signed. Tesla's out, but maybe we could still get them back. But in order to get them back, we need some clout to get on their team and talk to the governor and everything. I don't see anybody with clout in the state of New Jersey right now defending Elon and trying to get him back in. They don't care about us, the New Jersey drivers. Let's face it. None of the politicians cares about us. They care about getting reelected. This is an unpopular fight for them. So I don't see it happening.
Yeah, Tesla should have been a lot faster with the deployment of V4. I mean, to a point, our friend Sky just replied to the tweet talking about how it would be interesting if Tesla had implemented V4, 1,000 volt, basically multi-purpose beyond Tesla with Magic Dock sooner. If that rollout had been sooner, I'm curious if this would be different, because part of the reasoning for this passing is because they're like, oh, we need universal charging. That's what makes it look good. That's what makes, maybe completely, politicians who have nothing to do with EVs, don't know anything about it. They see universal and they're like, well, that's obviously better than just a siloed Tesla charging installation. And so Tesla really also hurt themselves by not having those. And I wonder if these sites were all universally open to Tesla and others already, there's probably no way this could actually pass, from what I can tell. And I do think that would have benefited a lot of things. I mean, I just did a video on Twitter yesterday going through Baker, California, where there was 96 Tesla chargers. Not a single one can support other charging and other EVs because it's a mixture. That's why. So V2 and V3, anytime those are shared on a plaza, Tesla will not open that up to other chargers or to other EVs, probably to mitigate some confusion, because there was already confusion there with the Teslas who were plugged in. There was a Cybertruck plugged into a V2, power sharing with the Model Y. And meanwhile, all the V3s were open. He just didn't know. And meanwhile, at that very slot, there was an EA installation, a brand new one, by the way, 12 stalls. So first you have 12 stalls versus 96. But 5 of the 12 stalls were broken on the EA. So there was a huge line forming of all these other Ioniq 5s, Mustang Mach-E's, etc. And so, Tesla came out and was like, listen, we are happy to play with others. Like, we do lots of Tesla Superchargers, sharing land and area with non-Tesla charging installations. So that they're coming back with that reasoning, like, hey, we can all play together here. There's no reason to like kick us out. But I think I'd be curious to see how everything would change if Tesla was faster to getting more magic docks and 1,000-volt and everything else.
That could have played a role. I don't know if it would have played a big role, Jordan, because it basically comes down to the state put out a bid for companies to manage these locations. And the state just wants to hand the keys over to a company and let them manage the whole station. They don't care. Quite honestly, EV charging is a tiny little piece of managing these plazas. They're not going to have a big battle just to save that because, well, first of all, Murphy, the governor at the time knew that by the time these things, the whatever hits the fan, he's going to be 3 or 4 months from, he's out in the end of the end of his term. So they only care, really, I know I sound so cynical, but it's true. They only care about what's going to help further their political career. So I think I don't know if Tesla could have the best universal chargers that there are. They could have pledged to install 100 of them at each travel plaza. I don't think that would have mattered. The state wanted one company to come in, make a bid, and run everything, and just give them a check.
So, Tom, here's a thought. Okay, Applegreen has that 1-to-1 with the state, right, for the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. Couldn't Applegreen, in effect, just like they have a relationship with McDonald's or Burger King because they're not in the food business, couldn't they allow Tesla to stay in these plazas, even though they're in competition with each other for charging? But when there's only 2 stations and then you got 12 superchargers, shouldn't Applegreen do the right thing here and step up for the business that they are in addition to managing the travel plazas? They're also now getting into the business of energy dissemination and selling it. And if they want to have me say good positive things about them, look, I'll pay more if there's a value for something, but I don't want to pay more just because there's no other supply. You know what I'm going to do when I'm on the New Jersey Turnpike? I'm getting off the exit and I'm going to a Tesla Supercharger, as opposed to let the Tesla Supercharger stay there. Now I go in and I buy the McDonald's, I buy the Burger King, I have my meal there. So you're going to lose me as a customer. Now, I probably have too much myopia on this particular issue and I'm upset. Most people are just like, I'm hungry, the kids are screaming, they want to go get a burger. But, I think there's an opportunity here for Applegreen to do the right thing. It may not be for their direct pocketbook in the P&L line for the energy, but of all the ancillary business. The other question I have is, isn't Tesla, do either of you know if Tesla is trying to do something about this right now by saying, hey, we're willing to do this or we're willing to do that? Or have they just thrown in the towel and it's over? Is there any chatter on that?
Well, I mean, they tweeted about it. I don't know what more they can do. Don't forget, Dave, Tesla's known this for 3 years now. This isn't something they just found out. Yes, they just got notified. Okay, as of whatever date, you have to shut your chargers off. You knew this was coming, and Tesla knew it was coming because for the last 3 years they've been installing the infrastructure right off the turnpike. If they thought they were going to be in those plazas long term, why would they install a second supercharger 3 blocks away?
Well, I think for the local community, I think one could argue, but I don't disagree that they probably had, because if you're living local, you don't want to get on 95 to charge. You'd rather charge it, while you could go in and shop at your Stop and Shop or your Grand Union or what have you. But I think you're right. I think they probably were like, hey, we're going to lose these locations.
Right.
But we're all finding out about this now. Is that the situation? Like no one knew about this ahead of time?
It was all in the news when Applegreen won the bids, but we didn't know at the time what the details were. We didn't know it was exclusive. We didn't know if Applegreen was going to partner with Tesla and say, you know what, you can install yours there, but we want 10% of your revenue. I mean, we don't know this. I'm sure Applegreen is managing the centers. They could do that if they wanted to. They certainly could do that if they wanted to. Or I got one better. Tesla now sells their superchargers. They just started this year. Any private company can buy Teslas to supercharge. Tesla will come and set the whole thing up. Well, they'll set you up with a installer in the area that installs their equipment, and you can buy Tesla Superchargers now. This is new. This just started a couple of months ago. And I was talking to the Tesla folks at the EV Charging Summit in Las Vegas, and they told me, please get the word out. Tell people, you can now buy and own Tesla Superchargers. Now, I don't know how widespread it's out there, but you can. Well, how about if Applegreen just were to tell Tesla, we'll buy the ones that you have in the ground here. You're not allowed to run them and manage them anymore, but they're in the ground. So what do you want for them? Otherwise, you got to rip them out. It's going to cost Tesla money to decommission them and rip them out. So any money that they sold them to Applegreen for, if Applegreen was interested, would be a boom for them.
Yeah,
or how about even one better? If Applegreen said, update them all to Magic Docks and we'll pay you whatever, it still would probably cost less because Tesla's so efficient and their equipment costs less than the equipment from the other companies. It might even cost them less to do that than to install the equipment that they are. But like I said, guys, we're beating this to death because we're EV people. This is such a little component of their whole overall strategy, Applegreen. It's just like, yeah, we'll put 4 chargers over there in the corner. We've got bigger fish to fry. And I know it's killing us and the EV community, but I just think this isn't something that's a big deal to them. It's just like, yeah, we'll put chargers there for the people that have EVs. We'll put them over in the corner. It sucks for us. It sucks for our driving across up and down the state. But listen, that's reality, I think.
It's a good point. And like I was talking to Kyle earlier, what would be a disaster is if the state of New Jersey said, Tesla, you can't allow anyone to charge your Tesla Superchargers anywhere in the state. That would be a disaster, right? What they're saying now through this contract is you're going to have to get off the exit. You're going to have to go to a supercharger that's a mile down the road that's already there, and you're going to have to charge there instead. And by the way, the McDonald's burger, it's going to cost you less there than it would at Applegreen. That's kind of how I want to look at it. One strange edge case. Jordan and I were talking about this. High voltage cars that don't have the chargers built into them, like the new Mercedes GLA. Yeah. Right. You wouldn't be able to charge that car even if you have the Mercedes adapter at a V3, like a V3 charger, even if it had a V4 dispenser. We'll call them whatever, a 3.5. So I would say that if Tesla were to step up right now, if they were to say we'll start accelerating the deployment of the V4 chargers, right? In addition to the V4 dispensers, that would be good because we may start seeing more and more high voltage cars out there that wouldn't be able to take advantage of a V3 just because of the lower wattage.
No, I agree. Yeah. They would have to go to Applegreen, I believe, not the state of New Jersey, because Applegreen now owns those plazas. Not own them. They own the rights to them. And they would have to go to them and say, look, we'll do this. But think about this, Dave. You're a businessman. You've been in business your whole life. Why are you letting a competitor come on your turf?
Because it's a
I owned you remember my plaza in Montclair? You've been to my plaza. I owned a pizza restaurant. You think I'm going to lease space to another pizza restaurant in the plaza that I own?
Yeah, I get it. But
you could say, well, but people like that pizza better. So you're helping the community. Bullshit.
So
it's business, Dave.
Nobody made pizza better than you, and nobody makes pizza better than you driving in an F-150 down 95. Okay, but the only reason I was suggesting that, and I get that you don't want to let a competitor in the door and like, hey, let's all party. The only reason I said is because if you let that competitor in your parking lot now, they're going to come in and buy stuff from you, right? And and you're still going to make money off of them. But anyway, I think you're right. We probably are beating this to death. Jordan, you get the last word. Tom and I have hogged this the whole time.
Well, Yeah, I was going to say we'll just have to see what the fallout is. I mean, we don't know what will happen with the Applegreen plazas in New York. Those are currently shared locations between Applegreen Chargers and Tesla Superchargers. With I haven't heard any inkling about them wanting Tesla gone off there. Maybe they do, and they just don't have a means to do that. But I don't know whether this is more New Jersey or Applegreen or both. Business decisions. Really, the whole thing comes down to, like we said in the beginning. I think the driver loses in this argument. Both drivers. I mean, Tesla drivers lose because now they have a less optimal. You don't have that crazy 6-second handshake. You plug in the car, walk inside. You got to worry about what I've heard is rough handshake times on a lot of these Applegreen chargers. Way more expensive than Tesla Superchargers, but also non-Tesla drivers lose out because all these Teslas on the road are now clogging up their chargers, which are, as we discussed, not enough. The current installations on this parkway are like 2 to 4 stalls, maybe 6 from what I've seen in a couple locations, but they have 6, I think, charging installations built out, 3 more on the way to open by the end of this year. Those should be involving Alpitronic and maybe some other higher kilowatt capacity ones. So we'll have to see the outcome. If any of you guys in the comments are local to that and you want to keep an eye on it, tag us. We'll be active on Twitter, monitoring this as it rolls out, as this all happens, and we'll see what the outcome is. I mean, maybe it'll turn into horrible headlines of long lines at Applegreen, which never looks good, and that just makes for upset people. And that's what I assume could happen. And if that doesn't happen, then I don't know. Then the narrative is, oh, there's not enough EVs in the world to worry about it. So we'll have to see.
In the meantime, just all stay home and level 2 charge and don't go further than the tether allows you to go. That's the solution, right, Tom? Come on.
Yeah, that's what we should. We don't need these DC fast chargers.
No,
Just charge at home. The hell with
exactly.
the people that live in apartments and can't charge at home. Just charge level 2. No, it's a shame. It's a shame. Look, I know I might have sounded a little harsh, like saying this is business and this is life. It doesn't mean that I'm not disappointed. I'm here in the state. I drive on the turnpike more than any of you guys. When I do my damn range tests, I've probably logged 10,000 miles on the New Jersey Turnpike and used the Tesla chargers many times in the past when I owned my Model 3s. So this is not good, but I understand how we got here, and I would love if we could somehow figure out a way to allow the superchargers to remain. I still think it's possible that could happen, but it would take a couple of people in the state that are high up, that have some political clout, to go to the governor, to go to Applegreen and say, guys, this is bad for us. It's a bad look. It's bad for our drivers. We have to figure out a way of making this better. And I just tell people, if you're living here in New Jersey, write your local congressman. Just as if enough people do it, if enough people say this is ridiculous, this is you have to figure out a way. Maybe you'll get somebody that'll spearhead it. I just think this is an example of how the things that Elon has been doing the last month, and like I said, I'm not saying I'm for it or against it, how it can hurt him ancillarily, like without, you don't really realize things like this. But now he needs a friend here. He needs a couple people that are high up in the state to go to bat for him. And when a lot of people in the state aren't necessarily behind him, it's hard for those people in power to stand up and say, with something, we need to help Tesla here, because they know they're going to get backlash from people. So it's unfortunate we lose.
All I will say is hats off to Tesla for building out the most incredible network. Okay. Right off the highway, proactively, with foresight, whatever the motivation was. The fact is, you're not going to be stranded if you're driving through New Jersey. You just may have to get off the exit and go. And there's so much infrastructure. It's insane. Yeah. So look, first world problem, maybe, but it's definitely not. As Kyle started off the video, it's annoying. At a minimum, it's annoying. So with that, guys, I want to thank you all for joining another episode of Out of Spec Reviews. We'll continue to monitor this. And Jordan and Tom, you'll be the first ones to know. If I see anything happening, we're decommissioning in Connecticut on 95 of Teslas. boy, oh boy, we're going to have a field day, because now we're talking, that's my state. Okay. So, but anyway, thanks everyone for joining again. Tom, Jordan, good to see you guys. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.